this session today, and we will share the link out. So if you have colleagues or other folks that you know that might want to weren't able to be here and want to watch it later, we will send that out to the list. Let me introduce who we're going to have on today to talk a little bit about this topic. First is Allie McKay. She is the account supervisor with issue communications and education at gmmb, and she'll talk a little bit about gmmb, but they've been doing a lot of work around messaging and promoting OER the past year and a half. We're also going to hear from Joe Mold, or just Mold. He's the Director of Online Learning and Instructional Design at Bay College in Michigan. And Bay College is one of the OER grantees for our OER Degree Initiative. So he's going to kind of dig a little deeper into how Bay College has been promoting their efforts around OER degree development at their college. And again, I'm Richard. I'm the director of the OER Degree Initiative for Achieving the Dream. And we had hoped to have another of our grantee colleges on today, Bunker Hill Community College, but they weren't able to attend. But I'm going to provide some other examples of approaches to promoting OER degree programs that come right from our grantees. We have, I'll talk a little bit about the program if you're not familiar with it, but we have 38 colleges that are participating in our initiative, and so I'm going to share a little from several of our colleges on how they're approaching letting their faculty, staff, and students know about their programs. And just a real quick do a real quick kind of overview of why we're having this webinar today, and this is really targeted specifically at our grantees, and our grantees finished their first year of our grant this summer, and they turned in their what we call annual reports. And what we saw from those reports, among other things, was a real interest in and need to figure out how to promote the work that we're doing at colleges. And so it was a fairly common theme. And so this webinar is really a response to that, to share some of the work of some of our other colleges with our grantees who are maybe not quite as far ahead as the other colleges. So, but we also think these strategies and approaches are fairly common, whether you have just a few OER courses or you're developing a degree program or you have a fairly mature program. Hopefully you'll find something helpful today. So let me jump in real quick, since I know there's some folks on the call that aren't part of this initiative and may not be familiar with Achieving the Dream. But Achieving the Dream is a national nonprofit, and we work specifically with community colleges, and we work with a member and network colleges of over 200 colleges that we have in our network, and really working with them to kind of work on their strategic plans and look at their data to really increase student success and improve student outcomes at their institutions. So Achieving the Dream is much more than OER. In fact, OER is fairly a new initiative for this organization. But really it fits right into how we see open educational resources as something that really is a lever for making some deeper institutional work, especially around OER degrees when you're developing a degree pathway. Achieving the Dream really focuses on 7 capacities that institutions need to be successful. Really kind of we ask our member institutions to kind of look at each of these areas at their institutions, and we work with them to, if there's a need to kind of develop them further to kind of improve outcomes in each of these. I think maybe I've got my OER glasses on, but I see OER as a really important piece in each of these 7 capacities. You could see it as touching, or as a solution, or as these strategy for improving each of these 7 areas. So 16, Tool Foundation, which is kind of the main foundation funding this initiative, approached ATD to lead what so he's really the main funder of this initiative, along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Great Lakes, and we also have NetTex as well as funders that are supporting this very large, one of the largest OER initiatives to date. And we are basically funding 38 colleges across the country. You can see it on the map here, to create degree pathways using open educational resources. So it's a 3-year grant. The colleges receive technical support from Lumen Learning. There's a community practice network with Community College Consortium for OER. And there's a fairly robust and in-depth research and evaluation project that's being led by SRI Education, along with RPK Group, which is looking at costs of OER Degree Initiative programs. This is a 3-year grant. We're really kind of in a year and a half into it at this point. And if you look at the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, you can see that's where Bay College is. We're going to hear from Joseph Mold from the college up there. What is an OER degree? Sometimes colleges refer to them as Z degrees, or in some cases ZTC, or zero textbook cost degrees. Essentially, for us, the way we define it for our colleges and for this grant is an OER degree is the redesign of a pathway of existing courses. So, for example, a general studies associate degree, you redesign those courses using open educational resources instead of the typical proprietary course materials. So for all required courses in this degree pathway, they must be openly licensed courses, so free and with an open license to be reused. And for elective courses, colleges need to be a little strategic and a little thoughtful about making sure there's enough of a selection of elective courses that a student can navigate this pathway within a typical time of 2 years for an associate degree. OER degrees differ from kind of an OER course project in that it really requires the entire institution to support it. When you have a degree pathway, you're involving a lot of other stakeholders at your institution, and it's a larger commitment. You also have to recruit faculty that maybe aren't your kind of the faculty that usually do this kind of thing, but maybe more reluctant or maybe not as aware of OER. So there's some larger challenges, excuse me, to institutions to complete an OER degree. And again, colleges for this grant need to offer at least 1 degree, or develop pathways for 1 degree and offer these courses, to collect and share their student data for our research and evaluation. Everything is going to be openly licensed through a Creative Commons license. We also ask our institutions to ensure access to low-income students of color, to make sure that these OER courses are available to really the most needy students in many cases. So those are the kind of real broad expectations of this grant that our colleges are participating in. So today we're going to focus on the capacity, the ATD capacity of engagement and communication, which is really kind of a crucial piece of success, I think, of OER degree initiatives. And colleges use a lot of different approaches for this. So really briefly, before I turn it over to Allie, why is this important? Why are we kind of having a webinar? Why are colleges, feel like they would like some support in communicating about these programs? First is just at institutions, if you work at a college or even a small college or a larger institution, it's really important to let the staff of your college know what's going on, know what they may not be familiar with OER, they may not know the full details or any details of this initiative. And so if a student comes in to admissions asking about OER courses, then it's really helpful to have a general awareness of the project at your institution. Same with faculty and students, just making them aware that this is going on. It's a way of showing that your institution is really making an effort at addressing some of the challenges that students face with textbook costs and costs of college in general. Another is, what you're communicating and defining open educational resources, what they are. It's a really, maybe it's a little bit editorializing for me, but I think it's a little, OER doesn't say a whole lot of what it is, or it's not a very good name for something. It doesn't really communicate the power, the impact that it has to really dramatically impact student outcomes. And so really defining what it is, so when you start talking about OER, a student and faculty, for that matter, know what you're talking about. A good example of this is, I think some colleges refer to their programs as no textbook programs, which is not exactly true. I mean, the courses, most of these courses do have textbooks. It's just that the textbooks don't have a cost to them. So figuring out a way to kind of communicate kind of what you want to emphasize about the courses or the degree programs is important, and making sure people have an understanding of that. And finally, just kind of on a practical level, you want to, your students to be able to find and enroll in these courses. And there's a technical aspect to that I'll talk a little bit about later on. So with that introduction, I want to first turn it over to Allie McKay from gmmb Communications, and she's going to talk a little bit broadly about, just generally about kind of communication practices from her vantage point and expertise. So are you there, Allie?
Yes, great. Thank you so much, Richard, for that introduction. I think it was a great segue into the content that I want to walk through today, which is how to communicate about OER to drive a successful program. So it's really a pleasure to speak with you all. I'm a big fan of the work you're doing to bring OER to your institutions, and it's something that we've been working on a lot here at gmmb. Basically what we do at gmmb, we're a strategic communications firm, and we work with a number of organizations, a lot of them working on how to support education initiatives. So for about the past year and a half, we've been working with the Hewlett Foundation to bring together the OER community, and really just to help the community build strong messaging around OER, and also to work with the media to ensure that those reporters out there have an accurate understanding of OER and are aware of the success stories around it. So if we could get to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. So whether we're working with the OER community or other organizations involved in education, we always like to start with some key questions to drive our communications planning. And so these are key questions that I would really recommend you think about as you prepare to promote your own OER programs. First of all, what are your goals for communicating? And it's important here to think about, first of all, your larger goals for your OER program, and then make some separate goals for communicating that ladder up to those larger goals. For example, you might want to increase student awareness about your OER program, and so one of your communications goals may be for students to understand the benefits of OER and know that the program exists. That leads into our second question here, whom you're trying to reach. For most of you, it's likely to be students and faculty, but you might have other target audience as well, such as bookstore staff or maybe librarians, and that can differ just from institution to institution. Third, it's also important to think about the messages you want your audiences to understand. This will always link back to your communications goals, and the messages might be different for different audiences you have. And I'll actually walk you through a message framework in a minute here on the next slide. And then fourth, it can be helpful to think about the vehicles you have for communicating. This might be social media, it might be your campus newspaper, it might be a newsletter or a listserv. It could even be an in-person event. So there are many ways to communicate, and this is where you can get really creative in tailoring it to your audiences and your specific context. Also, you might want to think about who can be a spokesperson or an advocate or champion for your program. It might be someone who's been involved and supportive of it so far, And you also can think about who has sway or who really reaches your audiences. So if you're trying to reach students, for example, it might be really great to think about students who could be spokespeople because they might have the most sway with other students. Finally, it's always great to consider a timeline as you're planning out your promotional efforts. You might think about, are there key dates that you need to hit, such as registration deadlines, or are there big events that you can take advantage of on campus and use that as sort of a launch pad for your promotion? So it's good to also plan out a cadence of communication so that your audiences hear your message often and clearly. We know that, if you just communicate a message once, it doesn't often set in, so you need to communicate often. And we can get to the next slide. Great. So on this slide, we basically have a message framework. I mentioned that it's important to have clear messages that you're looking to promote to your audiences. And for many of you, that might involve clearly defining OER and its benefits. So what we have here is a sample message framework about OER, and it's tailored to both faculty and students. And the key points here are essentially the same for each audience, but we've spun them and messaged them slightly differently so that they speak more specifically to faculty and to students. So for example, on the student side, you'll see that we put the affordability message right up front for the students, since we know that's important for them. And this is actually one of the communications resources that we offer on the OER Communications Google Drive folder. This is a completely open storehouse of resources our team at gmmb has created for the OER community. And so you're welcome to access these, download them, adapt them however you'd like in the spirit of OER. So you'll see the Google link to the drive there at the bottom of this slide. Great. So in our work with the OER community, we've really noticed that a lot of folks on campus say that there are some myths out there about OER that are floating around in their institutions. So as often as possible, we recommend that you mitigate against these myths by actively and proactively including facts that debunk them in your communications. On this slide, we've selected just a few common myths that you might have heard at your school. For example, one of the most common ones we hear is that it's hard to find high quality OER. And one way you can combat this myth is by including messaging about how OER can be produced to the same high standards as traditional textbooks. And you can actually find several more myths and facts, as well as some other great resources in a really just wonderful document from Spark called OER Myth Busting, and we've included the link to that at the bottom of this slide here. And finally, once you have your messages in place and you've laid out a plan for promoting your program, you can come up with a number of ways to enact that plan and spread the word. I think we're going to hear about some great examples of promotional tactics after I finish my part here, and we've just laid out a few here on this slide. As I mentioned, it's great to identify spokespeople who can speak out in support of the program and act as validators, just in case you get pushback, they can speak out in support to counter any negative messaging that might come up. And it's also great to collect stories of success with your OER program along the way. For example, you might conduct a survey of students to see how students like the program. You might work with a professor to research the impact of OER on student performance. There are a lot of possibilities, and you can even get creative with, taking video interviews or putting together photos of students using OER and collaborating on them. You can also create collateral. One example we have here on the top right of this slide is a social media post to publicize a positive statistic about OER. And other print types of collateral, or even other types of collateral that are more tangible can be helpful too. Finally, we would love for you to join the OER Comms Google group. I included that as a little parenthetical there. So what we do there is we basically share a lot of great resources and insights. And we're always here to help advise if you have questions or want some help. And one of the ways we can help is by working with you on how to get media coverage for your program. We included a screenshot here of an Inside Higher Ed article about Tidewater Community College. And that's just one example of great positive coverage of an OER program. And, working with the media is probably in itself a whole webinar. But if anyone is interested in this, we're always happy to speak with you and help you out. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And there's a link to the the Google Drive with many OER communications resources. And I can pass on.
Great. Thanks, Allie. I really appreciate it. Just a quick note. I forgot to mention this at the top of the presentation, but we're going to have a time for Q&A at the end. You should see a little at the bar at the top of your screen, a Q&A button that you can click on and submit questions that we're kind of keeping track of as we go along, and we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of the session today. I want to turn it over now to Joe Mold from Bay College, who's going to talk a little bit about what they've done at Bay to share information about their OER Degree Initiative program there. So, Joe, you there? Are you on mute?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah. Right, and you should be able to control the slides then.
Okay, great, thanks. Hello, I'm Joseph Moll. I'm the Director of Online Learning and Instructional Design up here in Bay College, where it's a balmy, 28 degrees, and expecting some more snow. We had snow last night too, so it's a nice balmy 28 today, but at least the sun's out. So I guess I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our experiences with open educational resources. We had the good fortune of working on some open educational resources before we wrote the grant, so we had a little bit of, we had 1 or 2 courses that were using OERs, so we did have some experience with OERs before we even wrote the grant, which gave us some good insight into the grant itself. So we're going to start out talking about faculty awareness and training. I think it's important that you need to get faculty on board with the grant initiative by introducing to them essentially the facts. And a lot of the facts that we talked about at Bay College was the fact that college textbooks are so expensive, and they've really kind of are out of control since the 70s. They've gone up over 1,000%. So giving those facts to your faculty, I think, are an important way to get their attention. And even I think it's what's even more important is to actually get the feedback from the students on your campus. So this was an email that I had gotten from a student at Bay College, where essentially the student said she paid $1,863 for 1 semester. Which is, it's almost the tuition cost for 3 of the 4 courses that she was enrolled in. So when you start talking about the facts to faculty, you want to make sure that you get the facts from your own campus and how much your own students are paying for their textbooks. And what are they going to do with the money that they saved? This student at the end of the paragraph says, save me the money that I could use towards other courses, reducing my student loans. And this is really the stuff that the administrators want to hear, is that OERs, open educational resources, are really good for student success. All of the data that we've seen so far is that it's actually helping to improve C or better rates, it's lowering withdrawal rates, and overall completion rates, it's also helping and improving. So those are some of the important facts, I think, to present to faculty. The fact that they can directly have something to do with the cost of college to their own students. Also, I think an important fact to mention to your faculty is that when you break away from the publisher textbooks, you also break away from having to feel constrained by their content or obligated because your students spent so much money on the textbook to cover stuff in there you wouldn't normally cover or don't really particularly think is relevant in your own class. So it really breaks you away from the publisher's content, allowing you to create your own content for the students that you know. As a community college, our faculty know our students, and they know the best way to deliver that content to them. So it also gives them the freedom to deliver that in whatever way they see fit. We talk about the 5 R's to your faculty. During our training sessions, we offered several trainings for faculty that we invited faculty to come And we essentially defined what OERs are. We talked about license types. We talked about the contract for the grant. And in that contract, we had different levels in the contract. And we essentially started with just adopting a textbook, saying, okay, I found an OpenStax book. I'm just going to replace my book with this book. But even with the adoption, there's still a significant amount of conversion that has to go on in a class. And then adapting is kind of adopting something and maybe remixing it with something else, or maybe building a little bit of your own content. And then the building is really significantly remixing, changing multiple different sources, and then building your own content. So we kind of broke our stipend down to this level, and then when we first wrote our grant, we had specific amounts for each level, which was I believe it was $250, $500, and $1,000. But there were cases where we went above that because it just wasn't enough. So I think it's important that we compensate the faculty for their work, because oftentimes it takes a lot of work to get a conversion from a traditional textbook to an open textbook. And during our trainings, we just, we started with the easiest one, which was OpenStax. So for people that are teaching subjects in the areas that OpenStax offer, like sociology, we're using the sociology book from OpenStax. It was a very easy conversion for them because it was just replacing their textbook. We talked about open educational resource, the OER Commons, and Michigan has its own little hub within the Commons, but it was also important for us to share where to find OERs for our faculty to make it easier for them to find. And we also got them connected to the CCC OER distribution list. It can be a little unruly sometimes because there's just so many emails in there, but it helps if you create a folder within your email and just dump them all in there, and then you can review them when you want. But I think it's most important, the most important thing I think we've done here is we've built a team to support our faculty that are converting from a traditional textbook to an OER. Because in our team, essentially what we've done is we have an instructional designer, we have a web designer, a graphic designer, and then we have the subject matter expert. And these people work as a team together along with the bookstore manager to get this content created and delivered to the bookstore in time for the semester to start. So what we've done here is we've created a team of people to support our faculty. And during our first training and consultation meetings, we say, look, we have a great instructional designer that can help you write objectives if you want help with that. And we also have a great graphic designer who can help you with the graphic design if you need that help. And also to clarify your expectations and when are our deadlines to get the OER converted so that people know what is a grant deliverable. I know I have to do a course plan. How do I do a course plan? And we have our instructional designer actually work with the faculty, dig out their objectives from their syllabus and put them into the course plan. So as much support that we can give faculty, the more efficient the process is. And essentially the roles that we've served, the bookstore manager was a really important piece of this for us because we wanted to offer these open educational resources in the bookstore for a greatly reduced cost. So really students are only paying for the cost of production. When you take the OpenStax book, which is like $25 I think used, and maybe $35 new, and you compare that to over $200, it's a significant saving. So supporting the faculty is really important, and building a team that has some experience with OERs is also very important. But once you develop that team, it gets much easier. And if you're trying to get faculty on board, faculty listen to other faculty. One of the trainings that we offer here in our college was we brought Mark Kelland up from Lansing Community College to talk about an open educational resource that he had worked on. He had tried publishing the book and then got into some legal disputes with the publishing company, and then they sold it, and then it was just a big nightmare for him. And so he turned it into an open educational resource. He came up to our college and he talked to our faculty about why he liked OERs and why he was using OERs in his classes. It's just, I think, easier to get a faculty champion. If you have one on your campus, great. If you don't have one on your campus, look for other campuses and invite faculty to your campus to talk to other faculty about OERs. Another important part of this is student awareness and bringing awareness to the students as to educating them what are open educational resources and why should I care. So one of the things that we did was we planned a couple of these rallies. We've had 2 so far, but they're big rallies that essentially we've called the Free the Textbooks rally. And we talked to the students about open educational resources. We gave them tons of free food. And essentially we had little flyers that we handed out to the students for every class that was listed on there that actually showed them what OERs we were using. We gave away t-shirts. On the back of the t-shirts was our baycollege.edu/OER, where they could find a list of all of our open educational resources. So it got them excited about learning what OERs are. And the first time we had the rally, a lot of students weren't really familiar with OERs. The second rally we had, a lot of students already knew what OERs were and have had OER courses. So one of the things that we did to get students and faculty and staff involved was to do a goose chase. And essentially a goose chase is an app that you load on your phone, and there are little tasks that you have to perform in order to get points, and the person with the most points wins a prize. So we gave away gas cards, and we had a lot of participation from faculty, staff, and students. And this is actually a staff member with a couple of students, creating OER with their bodies. So they actually got to learn about what OERs are while they were playing this Goose Chase app game. Another thing I think it's really important that this is a lot of work. It's a lot of time and effort for our faculty to convert from traditional resources to open educational resources. Even if it is something from OpenStax, they still have to look at question data banks. They still have to rework things. So to recognize that work is important. So during our rallies, what we did was we gave away trophies to our faculty that were using open educational resources, and we put Open Textbook Rockstar on the trophy, and we actually presented the trophies to the faculty during the rally. So this is actually our dean giving a trophy to one of our business instructors. So we would give the people that were involved in producing OERs these Open Textbook Rockstar t-shirts, and then we would also give them a trophy. So we recognized the faculty there in front of the students, and so everybody got to appreciate their efforts. Another important part of this is promoting it to the community, to the students, the faculty, and the staff. So some of the things that we've done for promotion, we always write press releases for our Open Textbooks rally, and those press releases are distributed to literally hundreds of different newspapers and news agencies and places in Michigan that will pick up the story. So and with that promotion, I really believe in the power of a single URL for all of your promoting materials. So this is baycollege.edu/OER. And if you go to this website, you will see a little bit about the grant, but you'll also see a list of every single OER course that we have. We have over 75 sections this semester that are open educational resources. And it's also got some great little promotional videos on there. Another thing, if you're going to have these rallies and these promotional events, it's good to have somebody come and actually produce a video. So what we did is we hired a videographer to come to our OER rally and do interviews with the faculty that have converted to OERs, and then also some of the students that have actually used OERs. And then we got students to talk about how much they paid for textbooks. And the videos are about a minute long. You can watch them at that baycollege.edu/OER. And I use them also to do presentations when I talk about OERs, when I go and talk to other colleges. The videos work really well. They're only a minute long to show how the faculty feel about OERs and how the students really enjoy working with OERs. We always invite our local newspaper to the rallies, and this is just one of the articles that they wrote. I made sure I made time to stop and talk with them and get an interview with the daily press so that they could promote our event, because we're always looking to increase enrollments, and this goes out to a fairly, to a large area around our college. So it was always important to us to make sure I personally invited the daily press. I also personally invited the news station, TV6. And then every time you have an opportunity to do an interview with, a newspaper, a television station, go ahead and take it and promote your own program. So this was an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education where they spoke specifically about Bay College and the struggles that our students are having. And this is actually a student who spent $1,800 in one semester. And as you can see, she's got 4 kids that she's taking care of there. And whenever you're given the opportunity, present, because really the more you present, the more you get the word out about the work that your college is doing, the more it's going to get shared, and it's going to make your college look good. This was the presentation that we did at the Michigan Open Educational Summit. It's also fun to get away from your campus and invite faculty to present with you, invite your instructional designer, invite your dean. It gives you a good opportunity to create connections and bonds with those people going to presentations to promote the work that you're doing at your college. This is another example of the video. We had more videos done with our second rally. Those ones aren't quite done yet, but for the second ones, what we focused on specifically was the views from administrators, the views from faculty, and then the views from students. So we'll have kind of 3 different areas of focus for these promotional videos. And also too, don't forget about the success. As I mentioned before, the data that we have done, we're seeing withdrawal rates drop by as much as 4%. We're seeing C or better rates go up from 5 to 7%. In just fall semester of 2017, we have 75 sections, and we've saved students over $140,000 just this semester. So the saving money part is great for student promotion, but the success part is great also for promoting it to administration and to faculty, because all the faculty want to try to do whatever they can to get those resources in the hands of their students on the first day for free online, and then significantly reduced in the bookstore. So I think that free online on the first day part is really important, but it's also important to have a low cost option in the bookstore. I believe that is the end of my presentation.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate that, and it's really, I mean, you guys did a really great job, I think, of covering all your bases for making both faculty and students aware of what's happening with your OER degree program. So good job. We do have some. Go ahead. We do have some questions for you, Joe. I'm gonna hold them to the end just so we have enough time to get through a couple of other things. And again, if anyone who's on the webinar has questions, please use the Q&A tab at the top of your screen and submit your questions. If we don't answer them today, we'll get back to you. So let me kind of build on some of the things that both Joe and Allie talked about but by giving you examples from some of our other grantees. The first grantee I want to focus on is Bunker Hill Community College, and again, as I said at the top of the session today, we wanted to have someone from Bunker Hill on to talk about it. But what was really impressive about Bunker Hill is not necessarily, I mean, they did a lot of things that they're doing at Bay College and some of the other colleges by communicating with students, et cetera. But they put it together in a communication plan. So in that plan, it includes email templates. It includes some of their promotional flyers. So not only did they do these things, but they kind of cataloged it, documented it, so that they could refer to it later or build on it, as well as share it with the broader community. So I have provided that link at the bottom of this slide where you could kind of look at their communication plan and some of the things they did to promote their OER degree initiative on campus. And by the way, these slides we'll send these slides out to you. And there's also a link on the last slide where you can go download them from SlideShare, where you can, if you're unable to access the links and things like that within the webinar. So Bunker Hill, again, like Bay College, really, did a kind of a pretty thorough coverage of their institution, sharing some of the things that they were doing with their OER degree program. So another, something that Bay College did, and I think it's something that Allie mentioned, is having a website. Again, Joe called it having that one URL where you can go to and find all these resources. A number of our grantee institutions have created websites for their OER degree initiative projects. I put the link to Pima Community College's OER website, but there's quite a few examples from our grantees. And so not only do they kind of share kind of information about OER and some of the promotional materials, upcoming training, things like that. It's a good place to kind of make interested faculty or students or even the larger community, since it's public, know what's going on with a program on a campus. This is kind of similar, but again, another approach if you don't have if your institution doesn't have a website or sorry, my slides keep forwarding. You don't have the resources, you could develop something called a LibGuide, which is what a number of institutions have done. In these LibGuides, basically kind of start to catalog, the information about OER trainings, OER courses, links, and things like that. So that's another good way of creating a place where if someone's interested or wants to know more or wants to adopt OER or wants to be part of a project, you can create a LibGuide to share with them, as well as have a place to collect and catalog what you've been doing for your OER projects or your OER degree initiative. I've included some links to some other LibGuides there as well. Another great way to promote OER and OER projects is peer conferences and events, and specifically for peers. And I want to bring some of my experience into this. When I was in Virginia, we had successfully created what was called the OER peer group. So there were peer groups around different kind of content areas. There's a psychology peer group and the math peer group. There weren't that many interdisciplinary peer groups. We did get one for OER, which means every 2 years they got to have a conference and bring folks together who were interested in that topic for 2 days, or maybe it was a day, and present to each other. And that was really effective in sharing information about, hearing from other faculty, hear what they're doing, seeing examples of OER and things like that. So if you have groups like that, or if you want to start groups like that, or have events where faculty can come together and kind of share what they're working on, that's another powerful way. Up in Minnesota, we have a grantee called Distance Minnesota, which is it's more of a consortium of 3 colleges in Minnesota. Just had their OER Degree Initiative workshop where they brought faculty in, some faculty recognition, some of the things that you've already heard from Joe and Allie, to really kind of have their faculty meet each other, collaborate more, and also get recognized. And I was able to go to that, which was really a lot of fun. So that's another good strategy to use. And as Joe said, faculty listen to each other. They're gonna listen to what their peers say more than what someone like I'll say or Joe will. Again, Joe touched on this, but video is another really powerful strategy. And there's a number of examples that our grantee colleges have used. Santa Ana College has some couple of videos on their website, their OER site, with student testimonials talking about the impact of OER on them, kind of how their expenses add up, or what life throws at them, and how it helps them. Tidewater has done this for a while, so they have like testimonials from faculty and students, and from their program, which has been around for a while. And so again, it's a good way of really, especially as Joe said, kind of short, kind of targeted videos that you can sit down and watch and kind of learn really, kind of this perspective of our main stakeholders, which are our students. This, I mentioned this at the top of the session, but having this information in a kind of a findable format where students can find out about OER courses, and faculty for that matter, see what they are, kind of take them for a test drive in many cases. And again, another example from Virginia, where in Virginia we were lucky, we had a central Blackboard instance for all 23 colleges. So anytime a Virginia community college system faculty member logged into their LMS, Blackboard, they all saw the tab at the top that showed the OER courses. So they could go, they could look at these courses, they could copy them, copy a course shell, and see what they're all about. And we saw significant adoption of OER just through making them available, really easily available and easily adoptable from faculty. It's easier these days with something called LTI, where we can integrate it really kind of nicely into most LMSs, so that it looks nice and kind of lowers the workload for faculty. But again, colleges have been kind of working to figure out where do they store these courses in their LMS, as well as in their student information system. I provided an example for, again, from Virginia on what they call their SIS attribute. So they put attributes in SIS that you could tag more or less which courses were, in Virginia's case, which were OER or which were low cost. And it's a way of tracking kind of use and adoption of these materials, as well as, giving students the information they need to say, I heard about these OER courses, I want to register one to save some money, and they're able to find them and again, in the SIS system, and the course catalog as well. Those are important. Social media is another good place. Again, I think Allie mentioned that. I want to provide an example from Alamo colleges. There was an effort by, I think it was the House and Senate, did a kind of something called Textbook Broke kind of social media campaign. And so Alamo had their students hold up signs, and they took a picture and posted on their Twitter, which is Alamo Open, showing what they would have done, like how much they spent on textbooks on one picture, and then what they would have done with with that money on the next picture, and then share them on Twitter. So it's really fun, and you get to, students get to draw pictures and kind of be kind of funny. But again, that's another kind of an interesting approach, and it really gets the student voice out there as well. And something I'm calling other from Westfield Community College, Alan Fortune has a t-shirt shop where he sells OER Evolution t-shirts, but he's using it to raise money for a scholarship for students. And so not only is it kind of, you get to have a t-shirt that kind of raises awareness and kind of promotes their program, but it's also that money is going to contribute to scholarship for students. So that was kind of an interesting approach as well. A couple of things that I didn't have time to add to slides, but one was, I believe it's SUNY, and if anybody knows the answer to this, I would really appreciate you contacting me, but I think it was at SUNY or SUNY OER Services. They actually have students design their OER textbook covers, so they make it part of kind of like something that a student can contribute to and put on the cover of their books, which I thought was a really great idea. Some institutions are doing other things called book sprints. where faculty have come together for a certain number of days. So psychology faculty, for example, and they'll actually sit down and develop their textbooks while they're there. So it's kind of working sessions where they come and collaborate and build out textbooks for their institutions. So there's a number of different really creative, fun ways as well to kind of promote OER and involve faculty and students. Okay, so we have a few minutes left in the session. First of all, you can find these slides, excuse me, at the link, let me get to it real quick, on SlideShare. If you want to download them and see some of the links. I'm having some trouble here. Okay. Also, some of you have asked some questions, and I want to try to at least answer some of them while I can, if I can as well. And also Joe and Allie, if you're still on. One question is from Dave. He asked two questions. One is how are you able to fund the giveaways, like the trophies and T-shirts, and also what do you pay faculty members to develop courses? I think you did mention the breakdown, the tiers, Joe, of what you paid faculty depending on the level of OER development they did. Can you answer those two questions?
Sure. So we actually had planned in our budget to have some promotional events. So we actually put aside some money from the grant to help pay for the promotional events and the T-shirts and the trophies and the food too. So we really had kind of planned on offering promotional events where we knew we were going to have to do some of those things. So we set some money aside in the budget. And then also too, we set some money aside in the budget from the grant for the stipends, which, you know, for the adoption, was $250. For the adapt was $500, and then for the build, where you're kind of building some of your content. And as an example, I think the most building we've probably done is some folks built one chapter in our English 101 book. So those were the stipend levels, and we set the money aside from the grant.
Great, thank you. Ron had a question, I think for you, Joe, about any pushback from your bookstore. I know you had your bookstore manager on your team, but did you have any pushback about the OER program?
No, actually, we've had the good fortune of, you know, working very, very closely with our bookstore manager. When we were actually writing our contract was up, and it was time to write a new contract, and I weaseled myself into that bookstore you know, contract, and I said, you know, I only want one sentence in there, and I said, we reserve the right to use open educational resources, and he was like, okay, sure, no problem. One thing we can't do is be in competition with the bookstore. So the bookstore has been very open to selling these books in the bookstore because they are significantly reduced. So they have a higher sell-through in the bookstore for books that cost less than. So if you compare our history OER books, our bookstore manager had an 82% sell-through, which is higher than any of her other textbooks, because the OER is, I believe it was $35 new.
Great. Thank you very much. Cindy asked about platforms managing OER. Cindy, whether they're helpful or if we had any experience. I think that's probably a topic in itself, and it really depends on the platform. But there are a number of publishers and platforms that are integrating OER or using OER, and I think the jury's out on many of them. I think, but I think it's becoming more and more common. You should expect to see more and more OER popping up, whether it retains its openness or not, or your availability to customize and download is the big question when you're using one of these platforms. Oftentimes, you're locked into it, and so with that said, I think that using a low-cost solution is sometimes if that's all you have, or is that the only solution you have, it's still good for students to reduce costs if you can figure it out. There's a couple of other questions that I think we'll kind of just target specifically. Individual will respond to you once the session's over, so we'll get back to you. But I want to thank Allie and Joe for being here today and sharing with us some approaches for promoting the OER and OER degree programs. And I want to thank everyone else for being here today and taking the time. Again, this has been recorded, so we will send out a link to the recording as well as the slides, so you can either share them or watch them over the weekend if you care to. My email is on the screen if you need to get in touch with me. Feel free if you have a question for me or any of the other panelists today, or if we didn't answer a question of yours, feel free to shoot an email there. But again, thanks a lot, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.